Welcome back to Ancient Edge, where we uncover the forgotten technologies that built empires and saved lives. Today, we're asking a deceptively simple question. Did medieval wood-hardening secrets truly transform any tree into an impenetrable fortress? Or were they spinning tall tales about turning softwoods into super-hard materials? For centuries, legends have circulated about impenetrable timber, swords that would not splinter, fortifications that would not rot, shelters that would outlast kingdoms. Yet beneath these mythic claims lies a more fascinating truth, a sophisticated understanding of how different woods respond to fire, oil, and time. This isn't alchemy or magic, it's survival, resourcefulness, and the deep knowledge that medieval craftsmen possessed about materials that kept them alive. Today, we're going to separate fact from fiction. We'll examine the precise chemical and physical interactions that medieval techniques employed, discover why some methods transformed softwoods while leaving hardwoods relatively unchanged, and uncover whether the hardened wood claim truly applied broadly. What we find will challenge everything you thought you knew about ancient woodcraft. Imagine a medieval workshop on a winter morning. The air is thick with smoke. A craftsman holds a piece of pine over an open flame, watching the surface char to black. He doesn't understand lignin or cellulose, but he understands transformation. He understands that fire changes wood, that certain substances seal its vulnerabilities, that time and technique separate the timber that crumbles from the timber that endures. Medieval texts document these practices deliberately. Chronicles mention wood treated with vinegar, blood, and animal urine. Builders soaked timber in oil and tar. Some craftsmen would char the surface of wood until it blackened, a technique later perfected in Japan as shusugiban. These weren't whispered secrets or superstitious rituals. They were documented, refined, and passed down through generations. The answer to whether these methods worked is far more nuanced than a simple yes or no. Medieval wood hardening didn't universally harden all tree types in the way we might imagine. Instead, these techniques fundamentally transformed and protected specific wood properties. They enhanced durability not through chemical transmutation, but through practical manipulation of wood's natural vulnerabilities. Medieval craftsmen achieved an intuitive mastery of how different woods respond to stress, moisture, and decay without knowing the science behind it. Let's begin with softwoods, pine, fir, spruce, that medieval builders relied upon heavily because they were abundant and easy to work. From a cellular perspective, softwoods are fundamentally different from denser woods. Their cellular structure is looser, more porous, with larger cells and thinner walls. This makes them lightweight and forgiving to carve, but, well, vulnerable. Moisture penetrates softwood readily. Insects tunnel through it with ease. Decay organisms feast on its fibers as if at a banquet. This is where medieval techniques became genuinely transformative. Consider charring, burning the surface until it becomes a layer of carbon. At the microscopic level, something remarkable happens. Heat removes the soft, vulnerable cellulose from the outermost layers, leaving behind a protective charcoal crust, dramatically more resistant to water, insects, and fire. This isn't subtle enhancement. We're talking about a material transformation so profound that charred pine can remain structurally sound for centuries, resisting moisture that would normally cause rapid decay. Japanese temples built with shosugiban charred timber over 400 years ago still stand. Archaeological excavations reveal charred posts from medieval fortifications, surviving conditions that would have completely destroyed untreated softwood. Oiling and tarring worked through a different but equally ingenious mechanism. When softwood was treated with penetrating oils or tar, these substances sealed the wood's surface, preventing moisture ingress at the cellular level. Moisture infiltration is one of the primary drivers of decay. It's what allows fungal spores to germinate. By sealing that moisture pathway, medieval craftsmen dramatically extended softwood lifespan. Combined with proper seasoning, careful, slow drying to reduce moisture content, oiling created a synergistic effect. For softwoods, the practical implications were enormous. A weapon shaft made from treated pine could retain integrity through years of combat. A roof beam from charred fir could protect a family through countless seasons. A ship's hull, treated with tar, could survive not just one voyage but dozens. These weren't marginal improvements. They were the difference between a tool lasting months and lasting decades, sometimes centuries. For medieval societies with limited resources, this made the difference between poverty and security. Now let's shift our focus to hardwoods: oak, ash, maple, the very types that medieval craftsmen truly prized for their natural durability and, well, remarkable strength. Here our story becomes, honestly, more complicated and even more surprising. Hardwoods present a fundamentally different kind of challenge. Their cellular structure is dense, with tightly packed fibers and thicker cell walls. Moisture penetrates them slowly, and insects find them, well, quite difficult to tunnel through. Natural decay resistance is higher because, many hardwoods contain compounds like tannic acids that actively inhibit decay organisms. In essence, hardwoods don't need hardening the way softwoods do. They're already hard. This raised a critical question. Did medieval wood hardening techniques actually offer practical benefit for hardwoods, or were craftsmen simply applying techniques out of habit? The answer is, well, subtler and more interesting than pure ineffectiveness. Medieval techniques did not make hardwoods significantly harder in any measurable sense. The charring process creates a protective carbon layer on hardwood just as on softwood. But since hardwood's surface is already relatively impenetrable, this represents a smaller relative transformation. Oiling hardwood provides moisture resistance, but hardwood's density already limits moisture penetration far more effectively. But medieval craftsmen weren't trying to increase hardness. They were attempting and achieving enhanced preservation and pest resistance. Oak treated with tar or oil would resist decay organisms more effectively than untreated oak. Insects would be deterred by the oily film, The wood would remain more stable over time, less prone to cracking and checking. These weren't dramatic transformations like what occurred with softwoods, but they were valuable nonetheless. The key insight here is that medieval builders understood something fundamental. Different woods required different approaches. They didn't have a universal hardening treatment, not at all. Instead, they had a sophisticated arsenal of techniques, each leveraged differently depending on the material. Oak received one treatment because of its specific properties. Pine received something different because its vulnerabilities differed. Ash was handled separately because its grain structure and decay resistance differed from both. So, to understand whether medieval techniques actually worked, we really need to bridge ancient practice and contemporary scientific knowledge. Modern materials science both validates and, well, clarifies these old methods. Research into Shusugiban has shown that charring isn't merely superficial. In fact, heat penetrates several millimeters below the surface, creating a zone of cellular modification that, significantly increases durability and fire resistance. Studies on historical timber confirm that charred wood shows virtually no decay in protected zones, while uncharred portions often show significant deterioration. Analysis of tar-treated timber from medieval ships reveals that tar didn't just sit on the surface. Over time, it penetrated wood's structure, creating a chemical barrier against moisture and organisms. Penetration was deeper and more effective in soft woods, whose porous structure allowed tar to move readily into cells. In hardwoods, tar remained more localized near the surface, but still provided protective barriers. So did medieval wood hardening work on all trees? No, but that's actually far more impressive than a simple yes would be. Medieval craftsmen didn't apply a universal treatment. They leveraged each wood's natural strengths and compensated for specific weaknesses through fire, oil, tar, and, careful harvesting and seasoning. Softwoods received the most dramatic transformation. Surfaces were carbonized into protective barriers or sealed with penetrating oils, making them resistant to decay for centuries. Hardwoods, already naturally durable, received treatments that enhance preservation and environmental resistance. This reveals something crucial. Ancient technology wasn't primitive, it was sophisticated. Medieval builders practiced applied materials science centuries before the scientific method formally emerged. The true value lies not in mystique, but in pragmatism. Today, we're rediscovering these medieval approaches, not from nostalgia, but from genuine recognition of their effectiveness. Charred timber is experiencing a renaissance in sustainable architecture. We're realizing that the ancients weren't deluded. They were patient, empirical observers of how materials behave. Thank you for joining Ancient Edge, where we uncover the forgotten technologies that shaped civilization. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video. What ancient techniques surprised you most? The past is calling. Are you ready to listen?